Hereby call this meeting to order. This is the September 11th, 2018 business meeting of the School District of Indian River County. At this time, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and presentation of the colors by Vero Beach High School's Air Force Junior ROTC Detachment 043 under the direction of Wade E. Dews, Chief Master Sergeant, retired, United States Air Force.
Present. Colors.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Arms. Left. Face. Cover guard. Pose. Forward. March.
Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, next is the adoption of the orders of the day. Are there any items board members wish to remove consent and move to the action agenda? Mr. Searcy, you are recognized.
Sir, consent A, consent C, and consent F to action, please.
Consent Alpha, Charlie, and Foxtrot.
Yep.
Okay,
ACF.
very good.
H.
Mrs. Zork?
H.
H, Hotel. Okay,
H.
H, yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended orders of the day, moving A, C, F, and H from consent to action.
Second.
Would you like to speak to your motion, ma'am?
No, thank you.
Your second, ma'am.
No, sir.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, on to presentations. At this time, Dr. Rendell, you are recognized for a series of presentations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm actually going to turn it over to our Public Information Officer, Kristen Maddox. We have several presentations, some video clips, a musical performance, and a special tribute to 9/11. Ms. Maddox.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. We'd like to start off with a moment of silence for 9/11. Today marked the 17th anniversary of the tragedy that occurred in New York City at the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001. Please join us in a moment of silence to honor and remember the victims who lost their lives, the victims' families who experienced the tragic loss of loved ones. Sorry, I didn't expect to cry. And the first responders and volunteers, our heroes who fought to save lives. Many giving up their own in the process. We'll now take a moment of silence. Thank you. It just gets you when you don't expect it, doesn't it? Anyway, we have Oslo Middle School performance here tonight. And let me flag them down. Thank you. Tonight is our first board meeting performance of the new school year. Please join me in welcoming the Oslo Middle School Brass Quintet, composed of 7th and 8th graders, under the direction of band director Michelle Hastings. Yes, I do know that we have 6 chairs. It is still considered the quintet. They will be performing Fantasy on a Children's Song and Folk Song Variation. We are very happy to have them tonight. Okay. Thank you, Oslo Middle School, for coming and performing at our first board meeting. I know that's always a tough spot to take because it's like, ooh, are we going to be ready? No one really wants to do the first presentation of the year, but you were definitely more than prepared. Our next video focuses on the Environmental Learning Center. The Environmental Learning Center provides 3rd and 4th grade students in our district an on-site visit to the ELC. This program serves approximately 2,600 students from our schools. Instruction is guided through the SPLASH curricula for 3rd grades and an environmental education program for 4th grades entitled Lagoon Days. In our video, you will see some of the activities our students encountered during their visit to the ELC. As a former teacher at Vero Beach Elementary, I can tell you it was my favorite field trip of the year. The experience that some of my students had that they may not otherwise get to be a part of if it weren't for this program was amazing, hands-on enhancement to their unit of study in the classroom. Our next video tonight is for Attendance Awareness Month, which is the entire month of September. Tonight we have 5 very special students with us. 4 of these students were first seen in attendance video when they were 5th graders at Dodgertown Elementary School. Fast forward 5 years later, and these students continue to be shining examples of excellent attendance and accountability. Please watch our follow-up attendance awareness video. Afterwards, we will have a brief presentation for these students. September is National Attendance Awareness Month. In the school district of Indian River County, we have been tracking 4 students over the course of their academic careers. We first spoke to these students 5 years ago when they were 5th graders at Dodgertown Elementary School. Even then, these students understood the importance of being in class every day. Currently, these students are successful high school sophomores at Vero Beach and Sebastian River High Schools, and they are speaking out and inspiring others about the importance of attendance and accountability in the classroom and in everyday life, and what motivates them to be in school every day.
My name is Cornell Wilson. I attend Vero Beach High School and I'm in 10th grade. My mom's always been like, you gotta go to school. She's always been hard on math. So that's probably a big part of it. My whole family, but mostly my mom.
My name's Harmony Kimbrough. I go to Vero Beach High School. I'm in the 10th grade. I don't like missing out on things. Like, I like to be there. I like to work. I like to take notes a lot. And my grandma, she doesn't like it whenever I miss school. So I want to make her proud and my grandparents, both of them. So I try to go to school. In my class, we have this day on history, and there's lots of facts to learn. And at the end of the week, we have a test, and it's all about everything we learned that week. So there's 5 of those things. So if you miss one of those days, it's not like you can just go back and write it down in your notes because it's for that day only. And there's a lot of work at the end of that class, lots of notes, and it's really vital to our tests for the end of the week.
Hi, I am Jocelyn, and I go to Vero Beach High School, and I'm in 10th grade. My favorite class in high school is history. I'm going to be the first one in my family that graduates high school. And it's mostly my dad, the one that makes me come to school every day. You don't want to miss out on stuff and then just be behind, and then you're all stressed out about that you missed something, and then you have to catch up to the rest of the people. I was born in Texas, and my parents separated, so I went with my mom, and we went to Mexico. And when I was 2, I came here with my dad. Ever since I came here, my dad would always take care of me, so I would always look up to him. And he always told me about his story, about his school. He had to take care of his sisters and brothers, so he wasn't able to go to school and finish middle school. So whenever I used to go to school, he'd be like, be a good girl, get good grades, and he would always tell me to come to school because it would be very important to come.
If I had to give advice to a student, definitely be to make sure that you can go every day to get all the information that you can, because it will definitely help in the latter years.
From a few years from now, all the work that you did in school is going to be worth it for a better future. If you go to school every day, you will succeed in life. You would, if you don't miss, that means you have more knowledge than other people that miss.
If I had to give advice to a student that's like in elementary school or middle school, I would tell them to go to school every day so that someday you can be whatever you want to be.
Hashtag SDIRC school every day.
And if you follow us on social media, you will see that we have been trying to promote that hashtag SDIRC school every day, and we're asking our students and teachers during a non-instructional time at school to take a picture of themselves, so a selfie, or this is a new word for me, an USSI, and that's a group, and share it using the hashtag, and we've put together every week a pretty neat little gallery in the Connection. Last week was wonderful. We're hoping we have another gallery to share this week. So the students, unfortunately, I don't see any of them here. They were all confirmed to come, but I will say their names again. How ironic. Oh, gosh. So we do have certificates for excellent attendance, just not at board meetings, at school. So we have Jocelyn Gonzalez, Harmony Kimbrough, Cornell Wilson, Jeanette Lopez, and Caleb Arsentalis. And I believe I said Vero Beach High School students, but they were from both Vero Beach High School and Sebastian River High School, so I just wanted to correct myself. Okay, so thank you to those students. We're starting a new tradition at our monthly business meetings. Each month, during one of our business meetings, we will be honoring a veteran. We're working closely with the Veterans Council of Indian River County to choose a veteran to honor. I'm honored to announce that Barney Jordan has been chosen as our first Veteran of the Month. Unfortunately, Barney is ill tonight and cannot be with us. I would like to tell you a little bit about Barney, though. He is a Korean War veteran in the U.S. Army. He was in the National Guard for 32 years, a member of Sebastian VFW, Post 10210, member of the American Legion, Post 185, and creator and founder of the Veterans in the Classroom program, where veterans go into the classroom to educate students about the significance of military service and special military recognition days. In his place, Bruce Cady from the Veterans Council is here to accept his award. Bruce Cady is the Special Projects Officer for the Veterans Council of Indian River County. He too is a veteran, having served in the U.S. Marine Corps. Welcome, Bruce. We have this plaque in honor of Barney Jordan for his service to our country, signed by Dr. Rendell and Mr. Frost. Tonight we have a special proclamation for American Founders Month. Hunter Dial, junior at Vero Beach High School, was nominated by his U.S. History Honors teacher, Mr. Bose, to read the proclamation tonight. Here are a few words Mr. Bose had to say about Hunter. Hunter is a very strong U.S. History Honors student. He is a very nice young man who is always respectful to his teachers and other students. Hunter is in the Vero Beach High School ROTC and has a strong passion for U.S. history. So I would like to welcome Hunter to the podium.
proclamation designating the month of September 2018 as American Founders Month. Whereas the leading figures present the country's founding, including those who were instrumental in crafting the founding documents that institutionalized individual liberty and representative government that derives its power from the consent of the governed. And whereas the moral and civic virtue, self-sacrifice, intellectual genius, and patriotism demonstrated at the country's founding fathers. And whereas the founding documents, including but not limited to the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution of the United States, the Bill of Rights, and the Federalist Papers, and whereas the historical and philosophical importance of the Declaration of Independence was its emphasis that all people are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas the principle inherent in the founding documents, including but not limited to individual freedom, equality, representative government, a free market system, civic virtue, natural law, and self-evident truth. And whereas the instruction may be integrated into the existing school curriculum through methods including but not limited to supplementing lesson plans, holding school assemblies, or providing school-related activities. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the School Board of Indian River County, Florida, that the month of September 2018 be designated as American Founders Month in Indian River County. Thank you.
The proclamation needs some action.
Right. Thank you, Hunter.
Thank you.
We'll do a picture in just a second.
We will. Thank you, Hunter. Members, this is a proclamation and requires a motion and second.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Tie goes to the runner. Mrs. Simchek with the motion, Mrs. Justice with the second. Would you like to speak to your motion, ma'am?
Thank you.
Your second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Now it's time for a picture.
Yep. By your action, show the proclamation adopted.
That concludes our presentations for the night. Thank you.
Okay. And now for citizen input. Up first, Ms. Liz Cannon, and followed by that will be Molly Steinwald and Sarah Plotter. Okay. You can correct me at the podium. Come on. Thank you. Mrs. Cannon, you are recognized.
Good evening. I'm speaking tonight about the assessment calendar. First and foremost, I want to state that the district has been active in working with IRCEA regarding the assessment calendar, particularly Chris Taylor. Many of the issues that we have with the assessment calendar are beyond the control of the district, as we are statutorily required to do many of the assessments, most, but not all. The DOE has set up the system of assessments to make it appear that they are not the problem. As you can clearly see from the assessment calendar, the statewide standardized assessments are the smaller portion of the total assessment time. But what is not clear are the progress monitoring requirements from the state are why there is so much testing. It is a shell game designed to pass the blame onto districts rather than the real problem, the state. I also feel it is another issue, state issue, when calculating for the extra hour for the bottom 300 schools, we can only look at instructional time. But when calculating for the assessment calendar, we are to look at the entire school day. It is yet another way that the DOE makes sweeping mandates that affect our students without real thought about those students. That being said, I do feel it is important for both the board and the public to know how many assessments the district is giving. In third grade, there's a total of 19 unit assessments. Fourth grade, 21 unit assessments. Fifth grade, 22 unit assessments. Sixth grade, 20. Seventh grade, 32 unit assessments. Eighth grade, 22 unit assessments. And ninth and 10th, depending on what classes they take at what year, it's approximately somewhere around 35. That's in addition to iReady or Achieve 3000 diagnostics, where 3rd through 8th grade have 12 days in which they are taking diagnostic assessments, and 9th through 10th are taking 6 days. With the statewide standardized assessments, this amounts to anywhere from 4.5 hours of testing in 1st grade to 53 1/3 hours of testing in 7th grade. That is just for a general education student. Students receiving accommodations from their IEP, it could be considerably longer. Once again, these are just the state and district required assessment. They don't even include the school-wide required assessments or individual teacher assessments. I will continue to work with Chris and the curriculum department to further reduce the number of assessments plaguing our students. But no, we can only do so much here. The toxic testing climate starts at the state level. In closing, I would like to share a story from my own classroom. Last week, as one of my students was working on iReady, I noticed that she was not overly attentive to it. I attempted to motivate her by saying this is a way for her to show how smart she is. Her response was, "I don't need to prove how smart I am. I already know that I am smart." She's right. She's very smart, and I didn't have a good reason why she has to constantly prove it through the multitude of assessments. Do you? Thank you.
Thank you for coming out, and thank you for your comments. Up next, Molly Steinwald and Sarah Plotter.
It's my handwriting.
Okay.
It's Pi Otter.
Pi Otter. My bad.
It's all my life. It's okay.
Sorry. You are recognized.
So I'm Molly Steinwald, the Executive Director of the Environmental Learning Center, and I just wanted to thank you again for your continued work for our children and valuing their connection with nature and the value of participatory learning. The mission of the Environmental Learning Center is to educate, inspire, and empower all people to be active stewards of the environment and their own well-being. And I know that you all are continuing to work to enrich our children's lives with so much going on in children's lives with stress and violence and everything else. You're doing so much on your end, and it's a real privilege and a value that you value the work of informal learning institutions and what we also can be doing in partnership to enrich children's lives and empower them to help themselves and also help the world around them. And with that, I want to give Sarah some time to speak.
Thank you. So I'm Sarah Pi Otter. I'm a naturalist and educator at the ELC, and I've been there for 3 years. I grew up in this community. I love when we have students and their families come to us through the school programs, and the parents express that's something that they remember 20 years ago that they did. And I think that's so beautiful they can share that with their kids, and the kids are learning, and you see that spark of passion and inspiration when they're connecting what they're learning in their curriculum with hands-on experiences at ELC. And they don't get that everywhere. Not every family is encouraged or able to get to the lagoon or to interact with their ecosystem. And for us to be able to make that connection, it's a lifelong memory for some of these kids. And for me, also an inspiration of career alternatives and just caring about our environment. I think that's really important for them to have those experiences. So thank you.
Thank you for coming out, and thank you for your comments. I'll never forget your name now. Those are two of my favorite things. Pie and otters. Oh. It's true. It's true. Okay. That concludes citizen input. We are now on to the consent agenda. At this time, I'll call for a motion.
Move approval as
Mrs.
amended.
Justice moves approval.
Second.
Mrs. Simchek with a second. Would you like to speak to your motion, ma'am?
No, sir.
Second, ma'am.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may interrupt.
Recognize,
by-
sir.
Thank you, sir. By your action of approving the consent agenda item B was the human resources appointments. We do have a new coordinator of mental health services. I would just like for her to stand and be recognized. It's Miss Melissa Newton. So she's joining the team. Let's give her a round of applause. The board knows, and the public may know or may not know, that the state legislature last year passed some laws regarding school safety, and one of the things they did was allocate money, funding available to provide mental health services to our students. And one of the things they required is the coordination of those mental health services with local agencies. So Melissa's going to be tasked with doing that, with coordinating our services and services provided by the community for our students' needs. So we're very excited to have her on board. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Welcome. Okay. We have completed the consent agenda. Now on to the items that were pulled from consent and onto action. Starting with consent A. Mr. Searcy, you are recognized. I believe that one was yours?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. The folk from Environmental Learning Center got it right, but I need to ask the question. I guess it's a technical question. In the instructions there, we in the contract, and I'm not sure who wrote the contract, but in page 2 of 87, it says the additional insured shall be listed as School District of Indian River County, and it lists our address. But throughout the entire contract, we talk about the school board. And my question, I guess, is, and the Environmental Learning Center folks got it right, the certificate is exactly like our contract, but what's the difference between the board and the district? And shouldn't it be consistent throughout?
Mrs. D'Agresta.
Thank you, Mr. Searcy. The school board is the contracting entity for the school board. By statute, the school board is the entity with the authority and the power to sign contracts. The school district is essentially the assets, if you will, of the school board. It would be your geographic area, your buildings, your facilities, your cars, your other vehicles. So the distinction from the lawyer's perspective is the school board is the entity. The school district is a geographic area as well as the assets of the school board.
It just looked a little unusual to me when I was looking at that, but it's throughout. It talks about the district and the board. And then I guess for the fine folks at the Environmental Learning Center, if they would look at page 77 of 87, and you may not have this in your thing, but there's a picture of a couple of fish in there, and you might want to look at the third one down on page 77. If we're teaching our kids that that's a snook, a tarpon, we're in real trouble. That's just for your information. And that handles my piece of A.
Thank you very much. Okay, having heard that, entertain, Mrs. Justice?
I'm sorry. From a legal perspective, Ms. D'Agresta, is there any concern as to the way the contract is written between school board and school district in this contract?
No, ma'am. No,
Thank
ma'am.
you very much.
The contract is.
Explanation handles it.
Okay. Very good. Chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Mrs. Simchek with a motion, Mrs. Justice with a second. Would you like to speak to your motion, ma'am?
No, thank you,
Second,
thank you.
ma'am.
Yes, I would. Thank you very much. So interesting. So many of our students don't always get to experience some of the wonderful things that are in Indian River County, and I'm very thankful that this school district is committed to not only educating students in our classrooms, but making them citizens of the world. And when Molly and Sarah spoke, it's just very important. So I'm thankful for this partnership. I know a lot of our students, it's the first time for them to be out on the lagoon, seeing the water, seeing the connection, and I do hope that it inspires them to become more involved in the environment and perhaps open up some career pathways. So this is something that I'm very happy to be able to support.
Further discussion, Mrs. Simchek?
No, I just want to, I said thank you very much again.
Any other
the
discussion? I just want to say thank you, good people doing great things for students, and that's what matters. That's what we do. Okay, with no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, on to action, formally consent C. Mr. Searcy, you are recognized.
Technical question again on page 1 of 2. This is bad checks that we're writing off. My question is on the, I guess the last, there's $55.90 there. It says collection seized. Does that mean we got the money back?
Dr. Rendell, is there someone who can answer that question?
It says here that it was seized, and that would sound to me like maybe we got the money back, so.
I don't believe we did. I wouldn't be in here if we had, but I will check on that.
Collection seized at request of district. I might read that as halted at request of district or as removed from collections.
Right, that we stopped trying to collect.
And the last question on this particular item, do we keep up with those folks that keep giving us bad checks? Do we maintain a list of them?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I don't want to penalize any child, period, but if the folks keep year after year giving us bad checks, maybe we need to keep a list of those and not accept checks from them. That's all I've got on that, but
Okay.
great question.
Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Mrs. Justice moves approval. Mrs. Zork seconds. Would you like to speak to your motion, ma'am?
No, sir.
Your second, ma'am.
No, thank
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we are on to former consent F. Mr. Searcy, this is your item 12.
We have a contract there with contracted services anyway for some really fine outfit there. My question, I guess, is MetLife deal?
Yes, sir.
On page 5 of 9, again, it comes down to the insurance certificate. Says that we have to have the insurance certificate in place before the contract begins. And usually we have the certificates in hand. There is no certificate here. Do we have that in place?
Dr. Rendell?
I would ask Mary DiMercato to come on up to the podium and see if she can answer that for us.
Good evening, ma'am. You are recognized.
Good evening, everyone. To answer the question, we've requested them. We've not received them yet, and I tried to follow up late this afternoon as well to have them for you for this evening, and I wasn't able to obtain them.
Have we begun using their services?
No, sir.
You will have that before we begin using their services, I'm assuming?
Yes.
yeah? I think it's very important that we cover ourselves with that. Okay, that's all I've got.
Thank you, and that
Make
sparked
a motion pending, and I won't sign anything until that's a solution. Mrs. Sinchi.
I just wanted to ask, so I noticed that the contract's August 31st. This is something that the employees pay, but we contract out as like a cafeteria benefit. I am concerned for on behalf, since we contract out, but the employees pay, that we don't have that certificate. I am concerned in this particular case because the contract stated August 31st. When do services begin? And if this is not time sensitive, I would prefer to see it on the next board's, me personally, because we're speaking on behalf of the employees. So when does, if the contract begins August 31st, when does the accident and sickness insurance begin for them?
The coverage effective date is September the 1st. We don't pay an invoice until 30 days after.
October 1st?
September
No,
11th,
September.
I think right here it says the 11th.
Okay, 'cause that would be my concern.
Yeah, well, I mean, either we need it or we don't, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
I'm
And
sorry, I apologize, that's incorrect. I'm not as familiar with the benefit contracts as the other. Our group health benefits become effective October the 1st.
Yes, okay, I
Not
see that.
September the 1st.
So can we postpone this to the next meeting?
September 25th meeting?
Yes, because then, and with shot fired warning to this company, you know, that, you know,
We need it in place.
but that would be in time for the October 1st.
I don't foresee any difficulties with obtaining the COIs. I understand from speaking with the vendor that it is something that they haven't provided to us in the past until we just requested it, as these contracts were prepared just recently. And quite frankly, it just came to my attention in the last couple of days, and we've been chasing it down ever since.
Okay. So you're confident that within the next 14 days, you'd be able to secure some
I wouldn't be
COIs?
surprised if we literally had it in the next day or two, sir.
Sure.
Generally,
Okay.
they're very quick to generate. We haven't had any problems with it.
Okay, Mr. Searcy.
The sad thing about this issue is it's come to the superintendent with his assumption that everything was in order. And that's not a good thing to do to the superintendent, in my way of thinking. It needs to be right, or it doesn't need to be on the board agenda. And I don't mean to give you a bad time, but I guess I am giving you a bad time, but I mean, this guy puts a lot of trust in the folks that work for him. And I just hope that we can get it right before.
If I may, sir, I've been part of your team for 6 months now, and one of the recommendations that we've made is literally a little checklist as part of the whole contract approval process, so that these matters aren't lost in the wayside. Unfortunately, not every contract that comes through the district comes across my desk. We haven't established that quite yet.
Did this one?
I didn't see it until I pulled the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move
Yes.
that we postpone consideration of this agenda item until our next meeting, which is September 25th.
Fifth. Second.
Second? Oh, you
I
seconded.
second. I can do that. I just can't make motions. Or I can actually, I won't go down that road. Okay, okay. So Mrs. Justice with motion, me with a second. Care to speak to it?
No, sir.
Nor I. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on to action item H. Mrs. Zork, this is yours.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to pull this because I agreed with the rest of the consent, but on this, I think this should be something that should go into action and not be stuffed into consent, because personally, I feel like we as a district, even though the state gives us mandates, I feel that we as a district can do a better job in not testing as much as we're testing. And since I've been on the board over the last couple of years, I'm not seeing any efforts to decrease testing, but just changing the test. So that's why tonight I'm not going to support the assessment calendar.
Okay. Do you have suggestions for changes or that you'd like to include, or just in opposition?
I would like to have curriculum come to us and assessment and bring some suggestions on how we can reduce this. You know, I'm not a fan of the iReady, and I think that is the first area that I would like to look at.
Okay. The other- Mrs. Justice?
Sure, I'd love, I've spoken with many teachers, and overwhelmingly, iReady is being used as a tool that's informing instruction in the classroom. So I would welcome a broader conversation about iReady, and really speaking to teachers and hearing what their feedback is, and using the program in the classroom, and how they're working in their data chats with their principals to help to improve student achievement. So I'd be excited to hear that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Dr. Rendell.
Thank you. Mrs. Dampier, this does represent a reduction in testing from last year, is that correct?
As a matter of fact, as far as the unit assessments, we did have a button available on the curriculum and instruction site last year, all last year. As you may recall, back in June of 2017, we had teachers from across the district. We did a presentation where they came in and created unit assessments. And last year, we had a button on the curriculum and assessment site where we received feedback from teachers throughout the year. And the feedback was, can we reduce some of the tests? We had teachers come in May, and we did do a lot of reductions in the tests. For example, third grade, and these assessments, the unit assessments, should replace the teacher-created assessments. For example, let's think about third grade. Third grade, usually they read a story a week in the past, and then they'd have an assessment on Friday. This unit assessment would replace all of those, various tests that they would have as far as a summative assessment. They still would give their formative assessments, and formative assessments do not have to be paper and pencil. It could be a ticket out the door, it could be whiteboards, it could be a conversation to show that they mastered the assessment. But we heard the teachers loud and clear, and we had them come in. We paid for them to come in May, and they reduced. I have a whole list of items that they reduced the number of assessments, where within a 9-week test period, before we may have had 4 unit assessments, now we have 2 for the whole 9 weeks. That's a huge reduction for, for our grade level. So they average between 2 to 3 per 9 weeks. Some are less than that, some only have 2. So for example, for third grade ELA for the year, we have 12 unit assessments, which equals to 3 within a 9-week period. So you would, over 3 weeks, you're actually creating a formative assessment and actually administering that assessment to the students. So we got feedback from the teachers, and we are going to send this out again and have an assessment button again where we can monitor feedback from our teachers so we can better improve our practices as a whole. So this was feedback from the teachers, and we did reduce some of them, and we are working with Mrs. Cannon and the union, and it's been an ongoing conversation, and that was actually, she sparked the conversation last year, mid-year, and we actually looked at some of them that we could reduce mid-year, but the majority of them were reduced at the end of the year for this year.
Mr. Cross, may I ask a question?
Thank you. Mrs. Justice?
In layman's terms, would a unit assessment be considered kind of like a chapter test?
Yes, at the end of the book. And if we look at books, they are not meant to master all of our standards. So we created these unit assessment. We have a test bank. The teachers came in. We facilitated the process, but they came in, they looked at the standards, they helped create the curriculum maps, and then from there, they created these assessments. These were all teacher created, and we got input from them, and then they take the assessments. The purpose of the unit assessments, if you think back to last year, was to provide quality assessments that allow for consistency across schools and the district, because we heard like at one school, they're offering rigorous assessments, and some schools may not, so we wanted it consistent. If a student switched from one school to the next, they're getting the same assessment. And we can monitor that assessment and actually have conversations. Teachers, we're asking teachers to look at the item analysis, have conversations, look at the question. They can actually look at the question and see, what happened. Maybe we need to go back and reteach for mastery, and that's the whole idea. No kid should be failing a class because of a unit assessment. There is time in there for reteaching. Our teachers actually helped put together the assessment calendar. They went in and they went in and put in time for reteaching, so it's spread out across the 9-week period. Like I said, we sometimes have only 2 assessments over a 9-week period. Sometimes we have 3, but they help create this assessment calendar for all of our grades 3 through 10th grade, and it's for ELA, math, and science.
Thank you for that clarifying. Mrs. Zork, and then I see Mr. Simchik's hand up.
Okay. Well, I'm looking here at grade level on page 10 of 10 of the Uniform Statewide Assessment Calendar 2018-2019. I look at statewide assessments. When I look at this, the state requires 15 to 20 minutes. The district is testing 270 minutes. Approximate total testing time is 290 minutes. First grade, statewide assessment requirement, 0. District assessment, 270. Then we go to second grade, 0 from the state. District requires 270. We go to third grade. State requires 320 minutes. District is testing 1,395 minutes. Fourth grade, 440 minutes. District is testing 1,605. Fifth grade, 600 minutes. District is testing 1,695. Sixth grade, 470. District is testing 1,950. Seventh, 6:30. District is testing 2,510 minutes. So when I look at this, I see the district is a big part of this problem of assessment, and I can appreciate that you did reduce it somewhat, but when I look at the approximate total testing time, I, as a board member, want to see it reduced even more, because I'm not only hearing from the teachers, that's not really my driving concern. I'm sorry, Liz, but what my concern is the complaints that I'm hearing from my own kids and my grandkids about, oh, no, I have to go to school today because it's iReady, and, you know, and the kids are being over-tested, and it's just taking away the joy of learning. So that is the reason that I want to see the testing reduced, is because I think we're sucking the life out of the classroom through all the testing that we do.
May I ask a clarifying question? Thank you. Where we see the disparity between state mandated and district testing, how many of those are, and this is important for those of you paying attention at home, and as a teacher I can tell you that this matters to me as a former teacher, the difference between a formative and a summative assessment, and how many of those district assessments are formative assessments, meaning that they guide instruction, or summative, meaning that they just test what's there. And also, I think it's an important distinction you've made, that as, like, let's say I'm a science teacher, a biology teacher, now any test that I would have had to create is being replaced or supplanted by a district that would count in here that normally we'd never see on any calendar, right? Like Mr. Frost's Friday tests wouldn't appear here in the past, but now we see those because they've been replaced by teacher-created LCAs or locally created assessments that are standardized to actually improve instruction by decreasing variability between classes. Like Mr. Taylor and I, if we both taught the same subject, and I was we may be weeks apart or something in the vertical, but to make sure that every student, if they transfer between our classes, would still receive that information. So I guess the question is, how much of it is formative, how much of it is summative, and how much of it is not supplementing more testing, but actually supplanting the current testing? So if you could sort of clear that up, that'd be helpful.
I'm going to have Chris Taylor, the Director of Accountability and Assessment, come and talk in reference to that item.
Mr. Taylor, you are recognized.
Thank you, Board. So to answer your question, yes, these unit assessments were meant to replace those assessments that teachers would normally create. So rather than giving a chapter 4 or 5 test, now you can give the unit 5 unit assessment. Most of these tests on here, the unit assessments, are either going to be diagnostic or summative, and in the meantime you're going to have the formative that leads up to whatever unit assessment you're going to give. And, you know, formative could be a simple, exit ticket that the teacher can do, or a short quiz that morning to, get ready for that unit assessment.
Great.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Dr. Rendell.
Mr. Taylor, the minutes, the district assessment minutes, every student in 7th grade isn't going to take that many minutes of assessment. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. So
it's the highest amount possible.
Yes, so we maximize those numbers. So those numbers include tests like the Access 2.0, which only our English language learners students take, and that's a significant amount of time that, most students won't participate in.
And aren't we capped to the percentage of minutes that we can test or something?
We
by
are
statute?
5% of total school hours, and we are below in every grade for 5%.
Okay, that's good policy. I don't know who helped shape that, but it's good stuff. Mr. Sears, you got a question?
A question, is the real purpose of all of this testing to make sure that our students are learning, or to see if our teachers are teaching?
We want to make sure our students are learning what they're taught. So after unit assessment, the idea is teachers can go back through and reteach based on the student's performance. That way, it helps drive that instruction to help them correct any, deficiencies.
And as the results of those tests, are those used to grade our teachers?
No, they are not. So the tests that are used to grade our teachers are at the very end, the statewide assessments, not the district assessments that you see here under the unit assessment. So the 7th grade FSA ELA will be used as part of the band score, but a unit assessment would not be used to evaluate a teacher.
Mrs. Simchak.
First of all, I diverted from my original thought, which I'll get to, but I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. Included in these minutes are diagnostic tests, correct?
Correct,
Which
yes.
I am totally in favor of, and thank you, Ms. Cannon, for giving us credit and then continuing to, tell us to continue the good work. I remember, and I have to give Bruce Green credit from years ago, who began attacking this, and I have to say that personally, I'm going to give a personal example of, I'm not a big fan of the FSAs. I've always told my child, who was not slow, but a slow learner, and who'd had difficulty, we had worked all the way through and with tutors and things like that in reading, and that 10th grade test was very pressured because that decides whether a student will graduate high school. Thank goodness that I had brought him to a private tutor / like a life coach, and the person said, take the ACT, that'll be the test for you, even though they're revamping. So at the very end of 10th grade, when we found out his results on the FSA, that he did not pass reading. So he did not pass the state reading test to graduate high school, but he had taken the ACT. Thank goodness he only needed a 19, yet he came in with a 22. So go figure that. The college readiness test, he was on his very first test, 3 points over the minimum that he needed, and he was just below on the FSA. That really didn't make me feel very strong and faithful about the FSAs. That being said, I'm glad Ms. Cannon also recognized that a lot of that is state, we're all frustrated with the state mandates and things like that, and that I do believe, though, that with a student that I have, and that students, that all students, as well as those students that maybe mimic my son's learning style, that to help the teacher, to help our children, that those diagnostic tests are important, because then they can figure out where the student needs the help. And I think that that's a very important tool for our teachers, and I think they're just as eager to know how to help those students, especially when I see how much they love our students. So I will support this tonight with the understanding that Ms. Cannon is continuing to work with. I'm glad to hear that there's been some fruits to that labor, and thank you, Liz, for putting pressure on. And I know that before you was Bruce Green, and I want to just back kudos to Bruce as he started trying to evolve into a smaller testing. So thank you for your help, too, and for helping us understand these, because they do sound like large numbers.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Taylor? Comments? Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we've had discussion, heard a bit about it, but we do not have a
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Ms. Simchak with motion, Ms. Justice with the second. Would you like to speak to your motion, ma'am?
No.
Your second. Can we-
Yes, thank you to Ms. Cannon for coming and speaking tonight regarding testing in general. It's very important. We know that at the state level, testing and VAM scores and those types of things are not, I don't think they always take into account all of the covariates that they need to in order to talk about student success. And I think at this level, I absolutely agree with Mrs. Zork. I think that what a travesty that if our children, aren't feeling like they want to go to school or they're not enjoying their school day. I want every child to want to come to school and enjoy learning in our classrooms. So I think continued work between our teachers and our curriculum and instruction department is obviously in the future. And I think as a school board, we need to take it upon ourselves to advocate for our students and our teachers and our families at the state level. And I don't know that we've been as active as we possibly could be in that area. And I think as we see with the certification issue that we discussed last week when we were talking about teacher certification and some issues with teachers passing certification tests, we also need to address student testing as well at the state level with our legislators.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No. Okay, motion carries 4-1 with Mrs. Zork dissenting. Okay, members, thank you. Having cleared the former consent agenda, we are now on to the action agenda proper. Action item A, approval for agreement with Advanced Medical Personnel Services Incorporated, 2018-19 school year. Dr. Rendell, would you please present the item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In action item A, we're seeking approval for an agreement with this vendor to provide speech and language and physical and occupational therapy services to many of our special needs students. We currently have open positions that usually provide these services to our students, so we are contracting these services out for the time being. We are seeking approval for up to $100,000 of services until we are able to fill the vacant positions that we have that usually provide these services. As soon as we're able to fill those vacant positions, we can terminate this contract. So we will not be guaranteeing that we're going to spend $100,000. We're just asking for approval to go forward with this contract up to $100,000 at this time.
Make a motion.
Second.
Okay, Mrs. Simchick with the motion, Mrs. Justice with the second. Would you like to speak to your motion, ma'am?
Yes, I would never want to see any lapse of services for any of our students. I'm glad that we have an understanding as soon as we get qualified people into this position. But I would definitely support this, so no student goes unattended.
Mrs. Justice? No.
Well said.
Further discussion? Mr. Searcy, you are recognized for a question or a series of questions.
I have a couple of questions. On page 1 of 11, in the third paragraph up in the bottom, it says, "The board shall exercise no control over the services provided." That bothers me just a bit. The contract starts this coming Saturday. Why are we contracting with a Colorado company and not somebody a little bit more on the local side? And was this a bid thing, or did we just pick them out of the air that they were going to be the ones that we utilized? That's 3 questions, by the way.
Well,
Okay,
I'll
Dr.
ask
Rendell.
I'll ask Ms. Clark to come to the podium. I do believe there is a qualifier on that sentence. It says, "The school board shall exercise no control over services provided by Advanced Medical Personnel Services Incorporated, except to ensure the quality and appropriateness of services provided by Advanced Medical Personnel Services Incorporated." I believe that
It's
covers
that
it.
dependent clause that gets you.
Yep.
Good
You are
evening.
recognized.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Rendell. If I could ask for you to repeat the first question. I didn't quite hear it, Mr.
In
Searcy.
the third, I guess, really it's the third paragraph up, second paragraph up at the bottom, on page 1 of 11, the second sentence in that anticipated outcome of contracted services, the second sentence under that says, "The board shall exercise no control over services provided by the medical personnel services, except to ensure the quality and appropriateness of services provided by Advanced Medical." What kind of control do we have?
So what I am going to do, I'm going to defer to Mrs. D'Agresta. We did have her review the contract in terms of the validity and ensure that she can answer that question.
Mrs. D'Agresta, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Searcy. Medical professionals operate under their own licensing. I'll use myself as an example. I hold a license to practice law here in the state of Florida. And while my clients can discuss with me strategy with regard to legal issues or how you would like to approach a particular legal issue, the law tells me that certain things must happen, and so I will behave accordingly. My licensure is based on rules of the Florida Bar Association, so I must follow those rules. This particular sentence in this contract has to do with a medical professional who will be on your property as an independent contractor, not an employee, an independent contractor performing essentially physical therapy or occupational therapy services under their medical licensing here in the state of Florida. So while that professional must follow the IEP, the individual educational plan for the student, the school district, Ms. Clark cannot say specifically it's going to be this physical therapy or that physical therapy. They must follow their licensing requirements as well as the IEP. But we cannot tell them how to be that physical therapist. They must follow their own licensing obligations.
Just bothered me that it says we can have no control over them. That's number one.
Except
sir.
to
Good,
ensure.
and thank you for referring to her. And, but that leads to the second question, and that is on page 2 of 11. We pay these folks based on, we've got $100,000 out there. That's the maximum amount payable under this agreement. How do we determine how much we're going to pay them? How many hours they work? Do they
So
punch a clock, or?
actually, it's 7.5 hours currently. We obviously, this contract has not been approved, but we have negotiated with them, 7.5 hours a day at $65 per hour, and that is the standard rate of pay.
How do you know they work the 7.5 hours?
So they actually sign in at every school and sign out.
That's it?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
That answers that. And then my last question, I guess, obviously, is on page 10 of 11. It says that before the contract begins, we've got to have insurance with additional insured. The board, there's no certificate provided, so I'm not sure if we couldn't get it from the vendor, or what's the deal on it?
So the certificate of insurance was included in the packet, and I know that Meredy had reviewed that information.
Not in my packet.
I'm going to I have to ask her to speak to that. That was reviewed and submitted.
You are recognized.
I'm thrilled to speak to this one because we have an excellent COI. In fact, it would be a great example for all of our contracts, quite frankly. I don't know why it wasn't part of the board packet. I'm sorry. I have a scribbled copy here. I'll be glad to share with you.
I don't need it. It just, we need it, so.
Sorry. It's rough.
Question.
Mrs. Ork.
I'm just curious why this is not in our backup.
We'll have to check with the clerical staff to see when it was submitted to Nancy to see if it was electronic or paper and why it wasn't in the packet.
I have a question for my fellow board members. At what point did were these concerns arise for you, sir?
I'm sorry?
At what point did these concerns arise, and have you reached out to them prior to this
I
meeting?
didn't. I asked tonight.
Okay.
Because there's a continual problem with the insurance certificates. Every meeting, we've got it, Sean.
Mr. Frost,
Every
may I?
meeting.
So I
Just-
totally agree with you. I think there is a continual problem, and it's something that we do need to address and make sure that it is addressed. My concern, sir, would be in an instance where perhaps you caught this, let's say we receive our board agenda printed on Wednesday, and perhaps you looked at it on Thursday or Friday and noticed that the certificate of insurance wasn't included in the backup, and, you know, everyone had, so when you noticed that, did you go to the superintendent or to Nancy, to staff, or to ask about that? And then my question would be, why not? And then also, sir, there would be a concern that if, as a board member, you notice something that may be awry in an agenda or in a backup, and perhaps it could somehow hurt the school district or teachers or students by not allowing for a service to be provided or lights to be turned on or a payroll to be made or those things, where does it lie in our responsibility as board members to also work together as a team to ensure that those things happen?
You ask your questions when you want to. I will ask mine when I want to. I appreciate the dressing down that you want to provide. I don't know as much as you do, apparently. This is where I ask the questions. This package was not complete. You didn't ask the question. Ms. Simchek didn't ask it. Mr. Sean didn't ask it. Ms. Zork didn't ask it. Obviously, maybe you didn't know about it. So this, and we can't talk outside this meeting. So I appreciate your, whatever remarks you want to call those, but I'm going to ask the questions where I want to ask them. You ask them where you want to ask them. And dressing down another school board member is useless as far as.
Sir, I apologize. I wasn't dressing down. I'm learning as a board member, and I wanted to ask that question. That's a concern that I have, and I rely on my other board members, and as a team, we work together. So that was just a question I was asking. I apologize if I offended you in some way.
As a board member, did you recognize this?
No, sir, I did not, and I'm happy that you did, so thank you very much for bringing it to our attention.
Mrs. Simchek, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm weighing in on this. Charlie actually might, and I'd have to agree with Charlie on this, this is getting old. But moving forward, you know, I don't know how, if you want to handle it under tracks under purchasing or whatever unit, because if you do it for whatever the contract, it comes out of HR, there's a problem. If it comes out of here, there's a problem. So it does get old. So I like what you're talking about. Contract administration or a contract administrator, whether it's the big jobs or small jobs, I don't know how that's falling, but that should be the checklist. If it's in development and you're taking charge of it, kudos, thank you. You can see this is a difficult room to play to, so if moving forward, but I would support Charlie on this. Maybe it's getting old, so which has nothing to do with you. But so I would support Mr. Searcy on, it's time, Dr. Rendell, to have that checklist in place. And it does just moving forward, it just doesn't become an issue anymore. So thank you for those, bringing those suggestions to the table.
And just for the record, I'd like to say I also support Mr. Searcy and Ms. Simchek's comments. I absolutely agree.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have your questions answered? Okay. No, we have a motion and a second. So if there's other discussion or questions, this is the time.
My question, when does this actually begins Saturday, correct?
This coming Saturday, right?
Yes, sir, and that was upon the request of the contractor to include September 15th, so we honored that request and
Will
that.
we
had
have the
been-
official certificate by Saturday?
She just gave
That's
it.
what that was.
That's it. It just wasn't in our packet.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions?
There was an additional question
There
Mr.
was
Searcy had
about Colorado.
regarding how this.
Out of Colorado.
Right.
So we have several contracts, many local contracts. One barrier that we have had lately is to retain a highly qualified physical therapist. So we have been reaching out nationally to try to retain this particular company as a viable candidate. As some of you may know, our physical therapist resigned at the very beginning of the year, something that we did not anticipate. So we wanted to ensure that services for students are in place as soon as possible. So that is why we went with this company.
Right, and is it somewhat reasonable to believe that if we can't hire local candidates, it's also difficult for local staffing agencies to similarly field those candidates as a private party?
Absolutely, and as you may know, physical therapists are in high need, and it has been challenging to find a highly qualified candidate.
There you go, students, pay attention. There's an opportunity there.
It's
Ms.
a great
Searcy.
field to go into.
I have one follow-up.
You can write your
question.
ticket.
The contract is with the group out of Colorado.
Yes,
Are
sir.
they going to be hiring local folks to handle this, or how do they get their people from Colorado here?
Actually, they have a national cadre of folks that they call upon. This is just the company, and so they have folks that they may have in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, all around the United States.
Is it like Deloitte where they bring them in for the engagement?
Right.
Okay, perfect. Sorry. That's how I think of things. Okay, any other questions, concerns? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Action item B, approval to issue purchase orders, spend authority for various vendors for recurring expenditures. Dr. Rendell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In action item B, we are seeking purchase authority for the amounts noted with the various vendors listed. The list represents recurring purchases from vendors who provide products and services that are mission essential and/or relate to safety and welfare to students and staff and are included in the appropriate budgets. All other purchase requests that exceed $50,000 will be presented to the board on an as-needed basis. Staff will present quarterly reports of purchase orders issued in accordance with this agenda item. This is a list that we brought to you earlier and has been reduced significantly and contains really the recurring purchases for food, and safety, and electrical, and fuel, and that kind of thing. So we're seeking your approval for the recurring vendor list with the appropriate spending authority.
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
Mrs. Simchuk with the motion, Mrs. Justice with the second. Would you like to speak to your motion, ma'am?
Yes, I would like to ask the superintendent, in tying in with our workshop today, as you can see the large dollar amounts, if he could possibly not just with these, but perhaps bring forward, I'm sure these are probably going to be like annual POs, and we had talked this afternoon about in the workshop paying with credit card. So I would just for curiosity like to see, not specific to this list, but at some other date, I'm hoping because of this large, and it's a continual bill. It looks like it's, whether it's the light or the fencing or if you could, it's not so much specific to this motion, but tying in our work that we did today, I'd love to see the list on your automatic pay by credit card.
It's funny you mention that. That's one of the things that was paired from this list was the Regents that we heard today actually wasn't a problem and has proper controls and everything like that. That was one of the things that gave some members heartburn that was pulled from this list. So now we're just down to bare essentials of utilities, food, things like that. So, which I think is actually a good thing too. But Dr. Rendell, would you like to address that? Thank you.
Yeah, two answers to Mrs. Simchek's questions. The first is the board members do receive monthly P-card statements, so you can see what the P-card was used for. And there was clarification at one time. One set of those statements is for actually physical cards that are used. The other set of statements is for the electronic purchasing in the name of the credit card, so to speak. The one thing that I don't think we've been providing to you, which we can, on either a quarterly basis or an annual basis, is the amount of rebates that we receive based on using this practice. So
That would be fine. That's really all I'm looking for.
yep, that would be something we can
thank you.
definitely provide the board.
Great. Great point.
I have a question.
Oh, Mrs. Ork, you're recognized.
From the last board meeting to now, the ones that we did take off, how are we going to address those vendors? Do we have a process in place now?
We do. Mr. Carver can come up and speak to it a little bit, but basically you're going to see more agenda items with the purchase requests, if it's more than $50,000, coming to you in the forms of requisitions, but also purchase orders. And Mr. Carver and I discussed a process he's used in the past.
Certainly.
You're recognized.
What we would do for those vendors that we remove from this list, we wouldn't be able to issue those purchase orders perpetually without delay. But what would happen is the departments would enter a requisition, and then when we get to the due date of our agenda items, we would assemble all those requisitions into a single report with a description and the vendor's name, the legal authority that we have. It would be a single agenda item. You could, if you wanted to pull it to discuss one or two of the items, you could approve all of it, or you could, if there was an item you had a question about, you could remove it because they'll all be numbered. But it's going to be a single agenda item that you'll be able to take action on. It's going to create a little bit of a delay for the departments, but we should be able to process those orders within a couple weeks if we stay on top of it.
It's going to require some prior planning.
Certainly.
Yep.
So we're not going to have the lights turned off or anything like that?
Well, we left, we
FPL
left the
on
the
utilities
list.
on
It's
here.
on the
so-
Is Vero Electric on here? Because they're the ones who,
We need to turn
Yeah,
that
watch.
off. We need to turn that off.
at least for now. Okay. That's good. Okay, any other questions, members? I know you.
I
this
don't
is-
know if Laura was finished or not.
You finished? Mrs. Searcy, you are
Well,
recognized.
the way I look at this, we've got Board Policy 6320 that they refer to in this particular item here. And that policy gives the superintendent emergency approval authority to approve anything, as long as it comes back to the board within, I don't know, a week or so. If we like the $50,000 limit, then we need to keep it. If we don't like it, we need to change. The policies are not suggestions, they're policies. And if we want to change the policy, maybe we need to change the policy instead of just saying, we've got a policy, but we're going to leave this and this and this out of it. That's not good business, in my way of thinking. So if we want to change the policy and give you $100,000 or $500,000, that's okay. But the policy gives you that authority for any emergency item. So I'm still not going to support it. I didn't support it last time and won't this time. But if it's a policy we need to change, let's change the policy.
So then, is your proposal, or would you be more comfortable with a proposal that had Florida Power and Light Company to give the superintendent $3.2 million in discretionary spending for energy?
Whatever the board wants to do as far as the limit, then that would be the board policy. But today, the policy is $50,000. That's the policy.
Right, which results in items like this that come through for larger expenditures for things that are more commoditized, such as food or energy, electricity, fuel, things like that.
And Mr. Chairman, do you think that we're going to get a bill from Florida Power for $3.2 million? I don't think it would be quite that large, but if the superintendent got the utility bill and he went ahead and approved it and came to this board and said, I approved it and we paid it, the lights are going to be on, that would be in compliance with the policy that we have today.
So if we had a bill that came, let's see, 3.2 million, if you pared that down a bit, 100,000 a month or 125,000 a month, it would be your preference that we review the electric bill every month? Because I guess my question becomes then, is the board then managing, or is the board providing governance, policy, and oversight?
The superintendent has the authority, if it's an emergency item like that, Sean, to approve it and bring it to the board. I think it's within 3 days. He just has to notify us. You know, we're not going to go against what he says. We're not going to turn the lights off, but we have a policy. And, you know, if you got a policy, every now and then, you ought to try to go by it. But he's got the authority.
Mrs. Sibchek, are recognized.
Well, this is in with, and I'd have to defer to the attorney, but I would believe that this particular action agenda is within policy. We are approving it at this time, and it would be as of an annual budget expense. We're approving that expenditure, not to exceed. If I recall on this, it would be not to exceed. I'd have to check with the attorney, but the emergency where I'd have to. I understand what you're saying, but it is not, this is not considered emergency spending. You know your electric bill. These are mostly consumables, what I would call consumables. And the most important one here is the food, which is for students. And I would never, so to me, it just seems that every month we're going to have to approve the food bill, the electric bill, the AmeriGas for propane. So in this fashion, we are approving what I would call an annual PO that could come in under, and that the rest will be liquidated and thrown into the end of money funds, whereas when we were cleaning up at the end of the year. So I feel we're in policy by this action agenda. If it's something that you're not in favor of, I can understand why. But I do feel that we're not violating policy because that by this action, it's being brought to us. And I wouldn't consider it, it would be out of place if it's not emergency spending. Paying the electric bill every month is not emergency, so then the superintendent would be out of policy if he paid and came retro. So I'll support this, and I'm sure these figures are based on last year's historicals.
Yes.
And tied to our current budget, correct?
Correct.
Right, these are things that we're voting on. We've approved a budget, and now we're just approving the spend authority up to the budgeted amount. Is that accurate, Mr. Carver?
That's correct.
Okay, so then I guess my question, and it's more for Mr. Searcy here, is like with the food and produce, if we were to get a produce bill each month, would then my question is, what do you do with that information? Do you just say, listen, we're not buying kids' apples this month if it's a tight month for the district? To my mind, I think we have staff who can make those kinds of decisions, and then it's up to us to say, okay, we're going to spend $417,000 on produce this year in one fell swoop, and because it's in the budget, the board has the authority. We know that there's a policy that Dr. Rendell couldn't do it because it's more than $50,000. Therefore, we're following our policy in approving $417,843.92 worth of produce to Robert Ernston Produce. So I think we're well within there, but I guess my question is, with the objection to this, what action would be taken or that we can't take as a result of approving this all at once? What you would like to see?
So maybe the answer that I would provide to you, what have we done in the past? How have we handled it in the past? We have the exact same bills in the past. This issue, to my knowledge, over the past 4 years has never come up.
We approve it like this every year, sir.
Approve this every
This
year.
is how we do it every year.
The same thing?
Yes, sir.
My apologies.
I mean, that's our
And
policy.
more.
We follow our policy.
They've trimmed the fat.
Yeah, we've reduced the list every year I've been here, sir.
Yep, okay.
Mr. Chair, may I address the
Yes.
board? The School Board Policy 6320, it addresses specifically what the board's contracting authority is over 50,000, and what the superintendent's spending authority is and contracting authority is at 50,000 or below. These purchases here that we're requesting, these future purchases, are in accordance with the language that addresses the board's authority. We're asking for advanced approval on authority for just these vendors so that we don't have to bring those purchase orders back and we can conduct routine business.
I appreciate that. That's exactly as I understood it, and thank you for making it very clear. Mrs. Ork, you had some questions or a series of questions? You're recognized.
So I do understand the need for keeping the food and the lights and the gas for the buses going. I have two questions on the EE&G environmental services. It was my understanding we only use them in the event of an emergency. If we had a water leak and we had a flood and we needed them to come in and clean that up, or if we had a situation like a Osceola magnet. So I'm not really understanding why this group would be on this list here.
So if I may explain, there's emergency purchases are addressed 2 times in School Board Policy 63. One is where it is exempt from formalized bidding. That means you have a situation, you can go out, you don't have to get bids, and you follow that process. The other emergency is the superintendent's emergency authority. If you notice, the EE&G is in accordance with a bid that was awarded by Brevard County. So basically, we may have an emergency situation where we need to use them, but the good news is they've already been vetted through a formalized bidding process. So the language that exempts us from putting those out for formal bid because of an emergency doesn't really apply because we have the legal authority to contract with them even if it's in excess of $50,000. So that's why that item is on this list. I don't know if that explains better for you or.
Mrs. Simchek.
And again, this is, so let me try to jump in. This is budgeted. There may be a case where we wouldn't use it, but also by putting this and putting it in print, they've piggybacked the RFP. So when the emergency, or hopefully not emergency, but if it came to be, the automatic going to this company has been already sourced and advertised and RFP'd. So by approving it in this action agenda tonight, they can go directly to that company without questioning from other competitors. So we've cleared the way in, and that's great that you put that there.
It's better to use a source that's been through that process if you can. There's sometimes when you just can't because the emergency's too vast or you need somebody right now, but in any time that we can have vendors that have been awarded through other bid processes, it's just better for us to use those when we can.
Mrs. Simchek.
Yeah, because I'll probably get in the company wrong. Is it, you know, they show those people with the water and they're moving them, ServPro or
Service
something,
Master? Yes.
something like that. So that would be a prime example how they have already gone through this process, and so they were already cleared as a vendor. I would imagine with any of these, at the end, as again, this is approving a yearly, and I don't know how you do it yearly, but pay monthly PO, if there's any money liquidated at the end of the year, that will go back into that general fund. You know, that'll go back into the general fund. So what they're doing is cutting a PO for the services, so all they have to do is make the phone call, just like all they have to do is pay the monthly bill. And so I appreciate that on the backup, because if somebody does protest, we've covered it in so many ways, so that's very good work.
Thank you. I appreciate your vast contract background. It's been
It's
a
not
tremendous
vast.
help.
It's not
Well, no, it is. Compared to, I'll speak for myself, compared to me, it's tremendous, especially around the government piece, and I learned everything. I learn a new thing from you every meeting, and I appreciate you pointing that out. So, thank you. Mrs. Ork, did you have follow-up questions, or? Okay. Good. Very good. Anything else from Mr. Carver? Thank you so much, sir. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Motion carries 4-1. You are an aye? You are a no? Sorry.
I'm not a no, I'm an aye.
You're an aye. Okay, thank you.
She's an aye.
So
Is
4-1.
yes or
You're the
no?
only
Okay,
no.
I got
Yes,
4-1,
sir.
okay.
All right, I could
It's
say
an A, it's an A.
signify by like sign, and then someone's going to do
It's
this.
just like
and it's the
sign,
whole
so,
thing. Yeah. When you say aye again.
Yeah.
You guys got my Facebook? Never mind. All right, sorry. Okay, that's it, right? There's nothing else? Dr. Rendell, there are no additions, it's just A and B?
Correct,
Okay.
yes, sir.
I'm just making sure that my sheet isn't short. Okay, with that, Dr. Rendell, you're recognized for a superintendent's report.
I'm going to save my comments to the superintendent's closing, because I don't want to step on any toes or anything, so.
Okay, very good. Discussion. No member placed anything on the agenda for discussion, but at this time, if a member wishes to have an item for discussion. None? Okay. Discussion is completed. Member matters. Would anybody like to go first?
Sure.
Okay, you are recognized.
Thank you very much. I just want to remind everyone that this Friday, September 14th, we have the opening of the Early Bird Classroom at the Dodgertown campus. I believe it's at 9 o'clock, and everyone is welcome to come and to celebrate this great opportunity. Again, I've mentioned some people before, but people in this room, Brooke Flood, Pam Dampier, Dr. Rendell, there are a lot of people that played a part in trying to make this happen the United Way. So just really excited to celebrate that. I hope everyone will come out and celebrate this awesome opportunity for our community and families and students. We just had the Day of Caring this past Saturday. I'm sure Dr. Rendell might mention something about it, so I'll keep my comments brief. It was awesome. I want to say thank you so much to every principal, teacher, staff member. Liz Cannon came out. I mean, it was just great. It's so great to see all of the different schools working together, the kids from different schools working together. The band from the high school was there. The cheerleaders were there. And we made 1,000 homeless care kits, which will be distributed across Indian River County, and I believe some will be sent to some other places, as well as various, how many projects across the district, across the county? It was awesome. Yeah, so I know just a great experience. If you haven't been a part of it, think about it next year. So that's what I'll say about that. I want to say another thank you to the Executive Roundtable. I don't know if our school board members have had the opportunity. I know some staff have seen the paintings that have been hung across the district office. Thank you to the Executive Roundtable for covering the cost of all of the framing of those paintings, and thank you to our students for creating that art. It brings children into the halls of this building, which is so incredibly important, and it's a great reminder of why we do what we do every day. And lastly, I brought some things with me tonight as presents for my fellow board members, are actually your pets. The Wabasso School has something called the Real Lab, and at the Wabasso School, they are making Phoenix puppy pastries. So these are puppy pastries. I bought puppy pastries. If you have a pet, I have some treats for you to give to your pet. They're all natural, so if you don't have a pet and you want to try them, apparently Joe Quigg told me you can try them.
Hard pass.
Whole wheat flour, peanut butter, oats, and cinnamon. But it was wonderful to see at the first Saturday of the month at the Indian River Mall. Students will be there selling their pastries, and what an experience to not only make the product, make the packaging for the product, but to be there and to sell the product to community members and to have the opportunity to talk about their school and about just awesome. So if you want to help work the booth, you can work the booth the first Saturday of the month at the Indian River Mall, or they're going to be at Riverview Park. If any board members want to come and spend a couple hours helping to sell them, fantastic. It was just a great experience. So I'm going to pass some of these down, take them to your dogs, enjoy, and that's going to be it for me tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
On behalf of Coco and Chloe, I thank you. I'm sure they'll love them.
Somewhere in my car.
Thank you. They really will like them. I wanted to first say, in the 5 years I've been on the board, I've missed 2 meetings. One was in a death in the family, and the other one was a joyous occasion, taking my son to college as a product of Indian River County School District, and of a student who struggled but worked hard. He could not have done it without the support of his teachers, his counselors, and his coaches. So I just wanted to as a mom, thank the district, and it was very wonderful to see my son go off almost 14 hours away.
No crying at school board.
Is just a very long distance away, but he's well prepared in life, and thanks to everyone in the district that made a difference in his life. I see one of our school resource officers back there, and this is time back in school, and there's a lot of things going on with school board members, re-elections of school board members, and not in this district, but regarding safeties and shootings. And I know that our school resource officers have been out there making our families feel secure with the beginning of school, and I do want to say thank you to that. It's interesting when, for me and my experience on the board, that I learn something new every day, and even today at today's workshop, gleaned a lot of things from our community that have volunteered to work for us in actually auditing our district. So I thank the community that gets involved, and there are ways to get involved in the school district, and I thank all the community members that do take part in it. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Searcy?
I just kind of reminiscing, like Dale has done here. When you folks out there in TV land and in the audience see us fighting with each other up here, it sounds like a bunch of animals or something, but really, at the end of the day, we're all together. But whether we vote together or not, that's not important. But it's my hope and prayer that our executive staff and the administrators will treat all of our employees with respect. And if they're having a problem doing that, I wish that they would come watch a board meeting and find out that no matter how bad of arguments we get into, we respect each other. And it's so important for our employees to know that their administrators care about them. If you got something to say it and get it done and move on and be happy about it. But there's some issues that are going on in our district right now that are just appalling. So my hope is that as administrators and right on down the pecking order, that we treat our employees with respect. And that's my 2 cents worth today, Sean.
Okay. Mrs. Zork?
I appreciate Mrs. Justice going over the Day of Caring. That was my first time going. I didn't make it last year, so it was a wonderful event. It was great to see all the middle schoolers and the high schoolers come out, and all throughout the county, everywhere you would drive, you'd see Live United shirts. So it was a fantastic day. I did want to ask, because I did go to the School Health Advisory Committee, and they had mentioned the school district's putting a certification training on this Saturday. Are we full for that, or do we still have some openings for that? Do you want to come up and, is it okay if she comes up and, because it's a great opportunity, the certification for the mental health. And I did have a question about it.
Good evening, board members, community members. Yes, on Saturday, there will be youth mental health training. It's an 8-hour training, and we're sponsoring that for community members and parents. It's the first time we're doing it, so we're trying out a Saturday to see. I don't know how many people have registered, but we could have up to 30 people.
And the certification is?
Well, if you go through the whole training, then you are certified as a youth mental health, having been trained as a youth mental health person.
And my question was, do you have to be 18 to take it, or can high school students take it?
It's designed, I believe it's designed for adults.
Okay.
I don't have the answer for students. The plan from the state is currently we will have, by the end of next month, we'll have about 8 trainers trained. And the state is still working out the plan on how to roll it out. But eventually all teachers, parents, and community members will have opportunities to train. All teachers and staff members will be trained. And it will be available for all community members, parents, et cetera. The age range, I don't have it in front of me, so I don't want to make that quote right now.
No, I appreciate you being here because when I heard about it, I knew it's a wonderful opportunity because if, as an individual that would want to go to one of the colleges and try to do one of these trainings, it would be quite expensive. So I appreciate the school district offering this.
Well, yeah, we'll have it available. The state actually, we had one trainer that we had trained and as the district had paid for. And now with all the Senate Bill 7026, the state is actually training many trainers. So we will have numerous trainers to train people. They are planning to, the last conversation that we had, it might go down to 6 hours, but we're still working it out. So we invite anybody in the community to join us. If we have a waiting list, we'll offer it another Saturday and continue to offer it continuously throughout the year.
How would someone who's interested in this go about expressing such interest?
Well, you could either call here to professional development to sign up or email Dr. Christina Jacobs at Indian River County Schools. Okay? And
And
it's
is this what
Christina.Jacobs@IndianRiverSchools.org.
Okay. And is this what they were calling like mental health first responder or something like that?
Yeah, they were calling that. But it's youth mental health training.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. Is that it? Okay. And just want to thank everyone and echo the thanks for our audit committee who came and gave us a brief today. On behalf of Cooper and Morty, that's how you say his name. You have to say it that, Morty. Thank you for this, and this is a great idea, and I think I'm going to maybe buy a bunch of these for Halo or something and send them over there. Do some more good. We truly live in a special community here, and tonight we saw that. We honor our veterans like Barney Reardon, and if you haven't had an opportunity to sit through or to observe one of those Americanism courses that they put on through Veterans in the Classroom, which is sort of his baby, I would highly suggest it. I've seen a few of them. They actually go through line by line of the national anthem and what it means and put it in historical context. They teach the students how we fold a flag and why it's folded that way. And basically, some of the founding principles, and continuing on that, American Founders Month, we have that proclamation tonight. That's something that we stole from Representative Mike Baleka, who had a bill that died, 143, in 2015, and we took that as a board and said, you know, that's such a great idea. We don't need the state we don't need the governor to tell us that's something we should observe. And so we brought that down to the local level. And the good news is eventually the good guys win. And last year he was able, as education chairman, to sneak it into another bill. So that so it's in 7055. Other districts have the opportunity to do that. But to my knowledge, even some of the more friendly to that concept districts haven't done it. But we truly do live in a special community, and I'm proud to be part of this community and to serve this community on this board. And unless there's anything else, Dr. Rendell, you're recognized for your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The board members hit almost everything that I was going to cover, which is good. The audit committee deserves a huge thanks from not just the board and the staff, but the community. These are volunteers that gave their time to help us do our jobs better. The Day of Caring was absolutely incredible. The United Way of Indian River County put on this Day of Caring, and there are all kinds of community projects throughout the community that a lot of people were involved in. And we've talked about the homeless care kits that the middle school and high school students put together, but every single elementary school had a project on their campus that parents and staff members and students helped with. And Storm Grove Middle School even had a project on their campus. Not only did they send students to the United Way event to help create the homeless care kits, they actually did some beautification work on their own campus. And so that was truly a way for our students and our staff to give back to the community. You know, it's been mentioned, we are very fortunate to live in a community that we do, that supports our schools so much, and this was our way of giving back. There were a lot of teachers on that Saturday that did not attend United Way Day of Caring events because they were actually at training. There were 2 different teacher training opportunities that Saturday. And so classroom teachers who had already worked a full week in the classroom delivering instruction took their Saturday and went and got training on how to do their jobs better. And it's amazing that they would give up their Saturday to do that. One more plug for something that's coming up soon. Saturday, September 14th, the school district is part of a mental health workshop. The focus on that workshop is anxiety. There's a movie called Angst that we will actually show, and then we'll have a panel, and we're a part of the panel. This is from 9 to 12 a.m., Saturday morning, September 22nd, actually, sorry, thank you. The 22nd, at the Emerson Center, and it's free to any member of the public. And we'll show this movie, Angst, and then we have a panel of experts. I'm actually on the panel. I'm not sure why I'm on the panel. I guess I have anxiety, or I have experience with anxiety, but...
You missed a meeting. That's
But
how
more importantly, Jeffrey Shearer from Tyson Teens will be on there, and Bob Brugnoli will be there, and Lillian and her staff will be there to assist. And so we'll have some resources there, community agencies that can support people with mental health needs, specifically anxiety, but that'll be the focus that day. And this is the beginning of a series of workshops that we're going to be involved in with different community agencies throughout the year. This one's actually sponsored by 2 local Rotary clubs. You know, they're paying for the film. You have to rent the film and rent the center and all that kind of thing. But we've partnered with some other agencies for some other events down the road. We've talked a little bit today and tonight about a renewed focus on mental health, some of it driven by legislation and some of it driven by it's just the right thing to do. We want to make sure that our students feel safe and secure at school, and that they feel valued, and they feel like, you know, they're at the place they want to be. And so we're trying to meet their needs through these different mental health initiatives. And that's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. And there are some information items in your packet. Anything further for the good of the district or the children? No further business before us. We are adjourned.